Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland. It is ESVN OT. If you have not yet, subscribe, people. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications. Rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And say hello through your phones. Say it out loud. I don't care if you're in public. To my co-host, my producer, my buddy, Bradley Alsop.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Bradley. Oh, sorry. I was just doing the call and response myself.
Oh.
Yeah, just because, we can't hear it, so I figured I would.
Well done.
I'd visualize it.
So you're going to the Jets game.
I am.
And I'm going to the Giants game.
I think Who are the Giants playing again on Monday?
The Seahawks.
Okay, so I think that might be a bit of a closer fare than when the Jets take on the Kansas City Chiefs. So yeah, I am going. I'm going. I am excited to see Patrick Mahomes in the flesh, Travis Kelce in the flesh.
Can I ask when you got these tickets?
Literally like yesterday.
Oh, okay. Because they must have been much cheaper than they initially were when we were going to get, for the first time, because it's now almost happened multiple times, and then there's been injury or whatever, Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. And short of a playoff berth next year, like they're not on the schedule together. I'm devastated about that. I mean, those are my two favorite quarterbacks arguably ever. I do love me some Lamar Jackson, but yeah, that's a big bummer, but it's the Zach Wilson show.
It's how could I pass up the third time to see Zach Wilson live?
Yeah. I mean, third time's the charm.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to hang out with Taylor Swift in the box.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, to
another news cycle about that, huh?
Yeah, she'll be there. It seems.
Oh, I've heard.
Reports say she'll be there, so I'll have to say hello and.
The broadcast is going to be unbearable. It's just I don't even.
It's Aikman and Buck Sunday nights, right? Is it?
No, Sunday night. Aikman and Buck
or
are now
Tirico
Monday Night
and
Football.
Collinsworth?
It's Tirico and Collinsworth. Yeah. Collinsworth gets a bad rap. I'm just gonna put that out. Oh
no, I like Collinsworth.
Well, I mean, besides that old video of him saying, he wants to hook up with 15-year-old girls or whatever.
Yeah, so we can set that aside.
Setting that aside, I think the Collinsworth Tirico team is my favorite to listen to from an auditory perspective. I do think Romo. Now people are sick of Romo screaming all the time, but he's fun. He's just not ever in prime time unless it's a playoff game because he's with CBS.
Collinsworth has, I think, sometimes a grating voice, but I actually think he's one of the more,
critical analysts?
Yeah, I actually think he, genuinely engages with the game from a schematic perspective or X's and O's perspective that I think is, commendable for a former player. Because sometimes former players are honestly just, there's some former player and analysts who just don't actually, give any, actual real analysis, and he does it pretty...
Yeah,
deftly, I'd say.
Greg Olsen has been doing a good job.
Yeah,
right?
He's good. He's definitely good. I like Greg Olsen.
He's still not a primetime fella. Yeah, it is the Thursday Night Football team with Kurt Herbstreit, right? And
Kurt Herbstreit, yeah.
And Al Michaels is unlistenable. It's horrible.
Well, because Al seems depressed.
Al
he
is
seems
so bitter and cranky.
He seems miserable.
Get out of there! Is someone forcing you to make millions of dollars, dude? Just retire. It's really a difficult product to listen to, and Bezos thought that was his big fish. But yeah, I still like the team of Buck and Aikman for the most part. They were both being pretty critical of Jalen Hurts' play on Monday night. I'm not sure if you heard that at all. But Jalen Hurts does not look like himself this year. I think it's... By the way, we're just going off on a tangent. We were meant to talk about the Damian Lillard trade.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, but I just I just think it's something to monitor. That Hurts is pretty off target to start the year. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Shane Steichen has departed the team.
And I think
quarterback whisperer.
And that was sort of there. I think we definitely had valid concern there in terms of the Eagles. The Eagles sort of I don't think we had any concern about personnel, but it definitely is a huge shakeup to go from not just one coordinator turnover. Like, it's a real brain drain to have both of your coordinators that led you to a Super Bowl last year leave in lieu of two brand new coordinators. Like Brian Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, the new Eagles offensive coordinator, I think the last time he called plays or like was really like in the driver's seat of an offense was like when he was at Houston, like the University of Houston, like running a college offense. So like I think there really are going to be some growing pains from the passing side of things. I mean, the run game still looks fine because it's kind of hard for it not to with the offensive line.
Yeah.
But I agree. I was thinking Monday too. Hurts was just sort of did not look comfortable in the pocket and seemed to be kind of bailing out on a lot of plays.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it might. He could still be getting used to things.
Totally, which I think is
but it's just
valid.
something to note.
Totally, something to pencil in.
And the Eagles are still probably an 11-12 win team, despite it, because that offensive line is the greatest line I've seen since.
Totally.
Ooh, I don't know. It's hard to say, but the thing.
The
I
Cowboys
think
line from a few years, maybe like the Travis
Dak
Frederick, Zach
year.
Martin, yeah.
And then before that,
Tyron Smith.
Another NFC East offensive line is like the offensive line that won the Giants.
I was just
going to
say the Giants line too. Yeah,
for all those years with O'Hara and Chris Snee, and those guys were monsters. The NFC East has a very strong history of offensive
good offensive line play, yeah.
Yeah. But before we get fully into football, let's talk about the big basketball news from yesterday. Damian Lillard traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. And like that's one of those trades where no noise really about it, except for, and we promised Matt Leck that we would do this. Matt Leck predicted it back in December, he said, December 2022.
I'll have to double check. It was either 22 or 21. It was definitely a long time ago, and I was very impressed by his foresight.
Yes,
there was some GQ interview or GQ Q&A he was doing on Twitter where he did say like one of the people he'd always wanted to play with was Giannis,
and also he tweeted something kind of recently back in 2022, saying if you had one player in the NBA to basically close out a game for you in a playoff situation, who would it be? And he responded and said Giannis. So there's a lot of
little writing on the wall, and it's so interesting. And I think maybe this is the case that maybe a lot of this Miami chatter, not for Dame's team. I'm not saying Dame's desire to go to Miami was not genuine. I'm just wondering if maybe Milwaukee was sitting back and letting all of that clamoring and rumor mongering happen while sort of having some sort of back channel with Portland to actually get a deal done. I'm curious.
Of course. And it seems like, I mean, Jimmy Butler's making public accusations about tampering.
I wonder if he might have been joking though, right?
No, because you don't Tyler Hero tweeted and said, I back that up, even though Hero was supposed to be the centerpiece of any situation where they would trade for Damian Lillard. So that's interesting. Look up Tyler Hero's Twitter account. He tweeted about it. They are, I mean, it's sour grapes, obviously.
For sure.
I mean, it's a little reminiscent of last year when I was smarting as a Knicks fan and thinking that there was some sort of collusion to not send Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks, where he really wanted to go. Same thing with Jimmy Butler. Same thing with Damian Lillard. But there's no real reason for Portland to screw over Damian Lillard in this instance. He stayed in Portland for way longer than he needed to because he's such a good guy.
100%.
So
and seemingly loved the team and the city. Like really, like became a communal fixture in Portland beyond just being a player. Like really seemed to embed himself within.
He's one of my favorite
culture.
Players in the NBA, just as a human, and then also to watch. Like this is really exciting.
It's exciting. Maybe me and you, I think we're both saying because we sort of came out of nowhere. We weren't even really. Me personally, for sure, I was not thinking about like this is a potential outcome. But like even with Drew Holiday being traded to Portland in the ensuing on the other side of things, there are so many machinations and lineup construction and situations and just the pairing of Giannis and Dame on offense where I was like, oh, like this is actually maybe the perfect place for him to go, actually.
He can create for Giannis, who can finish. And Giannis it's been too much on him to create offense.
100%.
Especially because Drew Holiday, I mean, he's a great pro, but he's been struggling and been a little bit inconsistent offensively. So especially when it comes to making deep playoff runs, you can
100%.
rely on Lillard to create, and that is what makes. I mean, they're immediately, I think, the best team on paper in the East.
I mean, you have one of the top 3 players in the league in Giannis, who is not only just an elite offensive, an amazing and explosive offensive player in a skill set, which was obviously a huge issue for Portland and issue for Dame, in a skill set and profile that is completely separate from Dame's, which I think is so key, that Giannis can be the guy. Giannis can be fed in the paint, basically, or continue to do what he does best, which is sort of his like Shaq-esque bully ball, while Dame can create for himself and for Giannis on the perimeter and by cutting and making plays,
and
cutting and passing, and for Chris Middleton, absolutely opening up Chris Middleton a little bit more as well, to just also either stay on the perimeter, or having Middleton and Dame together to make plays while Giannis can sort of be like the game wrecker in the middle of the court on offense is a really enticing prospect. And my initial concern about losing Drew Holiday's defense should be all but made up for, in the sense that if new coach Adrian Griffin, does what I think he probably will do, because it just seems more intuitive this way, is to sort of then center the offense on your 2 all-world defensive rim protectors in Giannis and Brook Lopez, which is also something that Dame never had in Portland. Dame never had a reliable enough rim protecting defensive center that to be that kind of presence on the other end, which was supposed to be Yusuf Nurkic, but was never. Nurkic's defensive game never really developed that way. So I think both Giannis and Dame in this partnership are receiving things that they never really had consistently, that will bear such fruit for them, that they can have these things to release these people and these skills to rely on that they didn't have before.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is also exciting too that Budenholzer is kind of not. I mean, I feel badly. He had a family member or whatever that died last year, but or not last year. I guess it was earlier this year. At the end,
right.
At the end
in
of
the
the
playoffs,
season. Right. So, and that's horrific. But I mean, the problems with his kind of lack of adjustments had gone back to
even the championship run. There were certain things in terms of in-game clock management, in-game personnel adjustments. Like, he was just not nearly as dimensional as I think a team with Giannis kind of like calls for.
Giannis dragged them to that championship that year,
and was doing like almost like non-human stuff in the finals, on defense and offense.
Exactly. And now they get another crack at it too. And Giannis had been kind of drops a hint publicly, like, "Hey, I want some help over here." And credit to the Bucks, like they did exactly what they needed to do to make him happy, and he should be. I mean. The obvious winner of this trade by far are the Bucks, but it was a 3-team trade. So the details of it are that Phoenix is the 3rd team involved. Holiday goes to Portland along with a 2029 unprotected first and swap rights in 28 and 2030, which I mean feels so far down the line. But the Bucks really didn't have many firsts because they traded those firsts, I think, to the Pelicans, if I'm not mistaken, for Holiday at that point. So they didn't have a ton to work with. At the very least, they didn't have those firsts. And so I don't know. I found a lot of people were saying that they thought it was a pretty good trade all around for all sides. If I'm Portland and I just get one unprotected first and the other 2 are swaps, and then you get DeAndre Ayton, who's the other member, like the other bigger fish in the 3-team trade, and Holiday, who's apparently not going to be long for Portland, and they'll probably trade at the deadline for other picks to a contender. I don't know how happy you can be with that return. Now, I understand that Lillard is in his mid-30s at this point, but they dragged this out a long time, and they could have gotten a better return at another point in like maybe a year ago.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that from the November 2020 deal for Drew, the Bucks sent their 2025 and 2027 first, and the right to a pick swap, to swap first round draft picks in 2024 and 2026 to New Orleans.
So exactly. Well, listen to that return right there. That's 2 firsts for Holiday.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm feeling a little bit happier about my take here. DeAndre Ayton has not shown that he can be a reliable teammate.
Right, he had an amazing year when the Suns went to the finals in 2021, and then basically since then, it just seemed like there is such discontent and kind of like, cynicism from him almost. Like, he just feels like,
I mean,
a fresh start is probably warranted
Sure.
for him out of Phoenix, I would say. But also, as I think you're saying too, like, I don't necessarily think he's like, you have to give up a lot for DeAndre Ayton
but also,
at this point in time.
Why was Ayton discontent at that time? I mean, the team was winning a lot. It was just it made no sense. And when there's smoke, there's fire in those situations.
It seemed like he had some frustration with his playing time during the finals, but at the same time, I mean, like, you're still a very young player. I mean, his first overall pick, of course, but you're a very young player, and also like. I think that was for reasons he was getting really taken apart defensively by Giannis in that series. Like,
yeah, and I mean, whatever. So at least Phoenix, Portland probably thinks that they can work with him. But so I just find the return fairly underwhelming for Portland. But apparently this beat out what Miami was able to offer. At least that's what we know of right now. And then Phoenix gets Nurkic from Portland in that deal. Nurkic has not been the same player. He's been struggling with injuries, but they still at least get someone big. In Ayton's absence, Grayson Allen goes there too. Perfect place for dirty Grayson Allen. I mean, no, I'm joking, but I'm not. I mean, I remember that Duke team he was on. He's a hateable guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Mac Jones almost a little bit. They sort of have the same vibe, like kind of just like always scowling white guys.
Is he Southern? Grayson Allen?
He's, I think, like from. I'm pretty sure he's from Virginia. I'll double check.
Yeah, I mean, either way, yeah.
Oh no, he's from Florida. Oh my god.
Jacksonville.
Oh my god, I think him and Mac are literally from the same place. So
that's
okay,
that's
all
the
right.
energy.
That'll
just,
work.
Like Southern preppy, like twerp asshole. That's what the energy that you get. So I don't know. I mean, it feels a little bit like Phoenix just they're gonna try to hopefully make the roster a bit more robust so that there's a little bit less pressure on Booker and on Durant. But from Portland's perspective, I don't know, man. When you just put that in perspective, 2 firsts for Drew Holiday and 1 for Damian Lillard is.
No, I definitely see that.
Damian Lillard's still a top 5 offensive player
in the
NFL, in the NBA. Yeah.
I think the idea potentially with this for Portland from a strategy perspective might be that you get Ayton, who obviously I think who's still pretty young, 23, 24, can kind of do maybe a little more, do more than what Nurkic was able to do for them as a not only rim protecting big, but a kind of rim runner offensive guy. And I guess maybe the idea, too, is if, as you said, we see the return value for Drew in that deal in 2020. I know this is 3 years later, obviously.
Yeah.
And I guess
different circumstances.
And I guess I'm curious in that with that in mind, do they think they can net a sizable return for Drew as well as almost like maybe the second stage of the trade?
I think they will, but it's Drew now versus when when the Bucks traded for him in 2020. It's a little different. Portland dragged this out for a long time, and when that happens, you have to prove that the wait was worth it, and it seemed like that wasn't.
For sure,
that's not what happened.
And then it's interesting for the Suns because I think Nurkic can obviously still a very capable rotation player, even if he needs to start for some. I think he still definitely can. But I do like the younger guys that they got in this, just to take a chance on them. Like I thought Nasir Little actually was pretty good for Portland last year. I like Keon Johnson, the other guy that they got in this trade. So I think I think it's interesting. But I don't think it's definitely like. I don't necessarily think anything for Phoenix there was like super like needle swinging or moving or anything like that. So I feel like if I had to rank it, sort of, it would be like Bucks very clear winners, then maybe like Phoenix is like 2, and then Portland's like
That's how I feel.
2A-ish.
Yeah.
Like it kind of like similar, like.
And you're never going to get value for a superstar, but it feels like the value is underwhelming. That's all I'll say.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think if it was almost, if they had even gotten like, maybe I would have been like, oh, Middleton and Holiday was an overpay sort of, but I would also still then be like, even with that slight inclination, still sort of be like, well, it's Damian Lillard. Like you probably would do that.
Right. But the fact that they've retained Middleton,
right, is a real clue for sure. I totally
exciting. Honestly, it's going to be an exciting.
No,
season.
I'm so pumped to see how this offense looks and to see how this.
I can't imagine it's anything except electric. But then there's so many other situations. I don't want to jinx them. I like the Bucks.
No, me too, for sure. Very exciting stuff, though. Very cool.
All right, time for our picks. Locks.
All right.
ESVN.
Stone cold lock of the century. All week.
Boom. Yeah, it's our locks time. Here. I mean, I lost in Survivor. Let's start out there. The Cowboys are ruining my life all the time. Actually, they don't ruin my life because they're not even good. And I mean, they're good, but they can't win in the playoffs because they're an arrogant franchise. But of course, Mike McCarthy, my most hated coach, arguably, in the NFL. I mean, I hate Brandon Staley, but Brandon Staley's not somebody that, ruined the career of my favorite quarterback of all time because his offense was so elementary and he was carried by him that entire time in Green Bay. Now he coaches my least favorite team in the NFL. And they ruined me in Survivor because they lost to the frickin' Arizona Cardinals. I don't even know what the consequences are for Survivor. I still did a Survivor pick now. Maybe we'll do like 3 lives or something like that.
Okay, I like that.
We're still giving people advice, so
no, exactly. Yeah,
there's no stakes.
Yeah, right. We can just do it for ourselves. And
yeah,
3 lives is not a bad idea too, just to see who gets the closest to elimination.
And by the way, we had a bad week last week. I am just struggling to start the year, so there's nowhere we can go but up. I am 2-7. Bradley is 3-5-1.
Starting the pushes early.
Yeah, baby. Bradley last week he pushed on that honestly last second kind of garbage time Rams.
Yes, right.
Rams score.
Right.
I forget exactly what the nature of the score was, but yeah, you were able to get a push there. We both lost the Green Bay Packers bet point spread at -1.5. They only won by 1.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It made me want to just throw something at my television.
Nasty beat.
And then I lost the Titans got smoked, so I was completely wrong about that, but I was right about the Patriots, who won by more than 2.5 points. And yeah, I mean, what you had?
So
what was your first pick then?
It was the Falcons
plus 3.
Right, the Falcons game. Yeah, and then so the
Falcons game, Packers, and then the Rams you pushed on, and you won on Survivor with the Niners.
Because the Bengals Rams game was 19-16 Bengals. Yeah, so
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was the results of last week. This week, baby, we're trying.
Yeah, we're digging our heels in.
Why don't you start, because you have the Thursday night football game.
That's right. I love to pick the Thursday game just so I get either success or failure out of the way quickly.
I hear you. And I almost went with this too. I think this is a really good pick.
Yeah, no, I think this is an interesting spread just because both you and I were saying this before the show. I feel like I almost feel like kind of shortchanging the Packers a little bit.
They've been disrespected all season.
Yeah, especially just given the fact that the Packers came back and won that game against Atlanta, and then also that the Lions kind of
against the Saints.
Oh, sorry, against the Saints, and then the Lions kind of bungled the Seahawks game.
Yeah, right.
So not even necessarily saying that's completely indicative of both teams, but I just more mean like, you'd think maybe that would shift it a little bit to be almost more of a pick'em. But I mean, I still think, I don't know. I think the Packers offense is still looking, even despite Christian Watson not being fully healthy, I still think they're looking pretty promising. And I think
he's coming back, it seems like, tonight.
And if he's coming back, I think all the better. And then also, as much as I think Aiden Hutchinson has been playing really well, and if there have been a few really exciting and intriguing Lions defensive players like Elam O'Neal and a few others, like I still trust the Packers pass rush and the Packers defense way more than the Lions.
Agreed.
And I think LaFleur is a guy who could capitalize on kind of singling out the Lions' defensive weaknesses, namely their linebacking core.
They do have a lot of defensive weaknesses, even though they've played much better this year. To bolster your point, Aaron Jones is returning, it seems like, tonight as well.
And that's huge too. They're going to have the kind of two-headed dragon of him and A.J. Dillon.
It's and also, to use your word, he is such a release valve for Jordan Love because you can just check it down to him. And Dillon has been underwhelming this year. He's just kind of maybe regressing to what we thought of not being very fast.
And Jones, as you said, Jones is the great thing for Love, where it's like either obviously just giving him the ball, but also if the little bubbles where like Love can drop back, little chip block from Jones, and he just goes out like make 3 feet, and then Jones can just start sprinting, getting vertical from there.
Yeah.
And they've missed that for sure.
No, and I just think that the Lions' performance last week is much more indicative of the fact that that Desmond Ridder is horrible than it is the Lions' defense being dominant.
Love is way more, to me, I think, like in control.
Love has looked good.
Right.
I mean, it was disrespectful that the Packers had the 4th best odds to win the NFC North to start the year. After the Vikings? After the Bears? After the Bears.
The Bears is crazy given like how absolutely catastrophic their season has been so far.
They had the worst odds to start the season. Look, someone may have placed a futures bet on them winning the division because of those reasons, so I'm a little invested in this, but at the same time, I do think that they're not getting respect. They're at home in Green Bay, too.
And that's the other thing too, they're in Lambeau. It's like I would also give them a point for just being in Lambeau.
Because they're 2.5 point underdogs. That means on the neutral field they would be like 4 or 5 point underdogs. That's absurd.
Which makes does not make sense to me.
It makes no sense to me. I mean, look, they could lose this game. I totally get it, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any stretch. And to bolster your point, I don't know why I'm making a case for you, because I should have bet this because I feel so strongly. The Packers' playoff hopes were dashed last year, if you recall.
Yes, that's right, by the Lions.
Who then they realized, because the Seahawks got that final wild card spot, had nothing to play for anymore.
Right.
And they still took it to the Packers and ruined Aaron Rodgers' final game as a Packer.
In Green Bay, yeah. So maybe the Packers want revenge.
Oh, I think the Packers are going to be pissed.
Want to rain on Dan Campbell's parade.
Hell yeah. And they're probably sick of hearing about the damn Lions. So I like that pick a lot by you. For kind of similar reasons, just in terms of like bounce back. Well, that's not similar, but just a team I think is getting a little disrespected because they've had some underwhelming performances.
I see. Yeah, I see what you mean.
The Jacksonville Jaguars -3 in the UK.
In London. For the Toy Story game.
Yeah. What?
Are you not familiar? Are you not aware of this?
What is the Toy Story
apparently
game?
for some Disney Plus or integration, there's going to be a broadcast where all the players are Toy Story.
Oh, like what they did with the slime or whatever.
Yeah. So like the players are like Toy Story characters.
Who in their right mind would watch that? Whatever. I don't understand that. But anyway, I am picking the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So like Trevor Lawrence is like a slinky.
Yeah. But this is what I do not. I think Desmond Ridder should be benched probably. I think he's looked really bad, and I didn't understand the decision to go with him into the year. And Heineke is just a better thrower of the football.
He's a better. He's obviously,
they're both not very good.
Yeah, and Heineke, of course, him and Ridder. It's interesting because I think Ridder sometimes almost projects more calmness, and yet both him and Heineke have like decision making problems. Like Heineke seems like a little bit more of like a flamethrower than Ridder, but then Ridder also will throw balls where I'm like, that is really dicey to do.
Desmond Ridder is not a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I don't understand why Arthur Smith feels like he doesn't need to get a quarterback.
Address that.
He's a weird man, Arthur Smith, and I just feel like the Jaguars understand how to play in London. They go there every year. They're going to play 2 games there in a row. They're still there next week because they're trying to, maybe creates a fan base there. And I just think it's Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley were pissed after that last game. I like bounce back games from teams and quarterbacks and players that I believe in. Like the problem too with the Atlanta Falcons is that they can't, their receivers can't get separation. Drake London's not that fast. Kyle Pitts is not as fast as maybe we thought. And when they can, Desmond Ridder can't hit them.
And it's not always as if he's. The other thing is, it's like what's been a little bit frustrating to watch. Not only as having Drake London on my fantasy team, but also just generally with guys like Pitts in London, is that I think because of that, like you're saying, he's also not really like necessarily looking for them, or if he is, they're not getting separation, or he's not getting to them quickly enough in his route tree or whatever. So sometimes it's also the throws are also not going to, I think, the most impactful players. Like there's a lot of like throwing to Mac Hollins, throwing to Jonnu Smith, you know, as opposed to the guys who you drafted really high for, so their explosive potential.
Yeah, and so I do think that the fear is that the Jaguars don't have a great run defense, but I do also think, look, the Falcons are one-dimensional, and if they're able to focus on it, the coaching staff will be prepared for it. So
the Jags offense, if you look back at it, I was doing a little bit of just like kind of like watching some clips from the game on Twitter, and it's not as if the throws that that Trevor had last week were at all kind of a concern in terms of like him not seeing things or him not progressing through the offense properly. There were a bunch of drops. And
Calvin Ridley. I mean, as a Calvin Ridley fantasy manager, I was screaming at the TV when he dropped that. But
then Agnew, he threw a perfect ball to Jamal. He threw a perfect ball to Jamal Agnew, and Agnew fumbled it. Like Agnew caught it and then fumbled it.
Yeah.
So like,
and CJ Stroud they underestimated him, and they totally underestimated him, and I think they'll be focused this week. So that's why I'm going with.
No, I see it. I'm not like. I didn't go out of that game being like, oh, like the Jags offense is in trouble. No, I think I agree. I think they'll have a rebound here.
Okay, so Miami Dolphins. You're going with the Miami Dolphins plus 2.5. I considered this as well in Buffalo.
Well, the Bills offense did look way better against Washington this past week. So for sure, I definitely think the Bills have kind of shaken off whatever rust or whatever growing pains they might have been experiencing relative to Week 1 against the Jets, but I'm hard pressed to put them as 2.5-point underdog. The team as 2.5-point underdogs that just scored 70 points on a good Broncos defense.
Yeah,
like maybe of course I know that's a probably anomalous performance. You don't get those types of performances every day. But I'm still obviously very, very bullish on this Dolphins offense. And,
why wouldn't you be? This is another bet I considered. We're kind of the same mind.
And the Bills, and I think the Bills defense, while obviously definitely showing more these past few weeks, getting still fantastic play from guys like Matt Milano, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, the kind of elder statesmen of the defense, but even guys like Terrell Bernard are coming on, like newer faces there. I just still think, until the Dolphins show me otherwise, I just think this offense can blow the doors off guys.
I mean, the Bills are not talented in the way that the Dolphins are.
Right. I even
several
think,
ticks.
And I even think defensively also too. I think
I agree with you. I mean, I think McDermott's been smart and has coached them well to start the year, and they've played well, but their last 2 games, the Bills ran up the score on the Raiders, who we're now discovering are as bad as we maybe thought they were, despite that Week 1 performance, and the Commanders, and they just the Commanders are not as bad, but Sam Howell is, we talk about Josh Allen being an interception guy. Like those are both 2 quarterbacks that love to stretch the field and maybe make some risky passes, and Sam Howell is not Josh Allen. So there might be a little bit of bias in terms of the Bills did look very good these past 2 weeks, but the opponents were not that impressive. So we'll see. I mean, I do think that the Dolphins win this game. And it is interesting that they are 2.5-point dogs. So that means on the neutral field it would be a pick 'em, which I can see that. It'll
be really interesting, I think, to see this. the interdivision matchup, but also a playoff rematch with a team at mostly full strength. Obviously, when they were starting Skylar Thompson against the Bills last year,
and they've improved. Playoffs. And then they have Vic Fangio on the defensive side of the ball. So I do think the Dolphins win this game. But I don't know. It is a little risky.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen.
But yeah, well, that's all we can do here.
Gotta risk it. Gotta risk it to.
This is probably my riskiest one too. The Baltimore Ravens +3. I don't know why I keep. I mean, I screwed myself betting against the Cleveland Browns last week. But I believe in the Ravens because every year they show me that I should. And
for sure, yeah. Like
Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh are 12-2 against the spread as underdogs when Lamar Jackson is the starting quarterback. I read that statistic today. The Browns defense is maybe one of the best in the NFL. It is legit.
Yeah, they're looking awesome. Myles Garrett, I feel like, I mean, this is not, I think, that revolutionary to say, but I think he's already early on kind of competing with Micah Parsons for like defensive player of the year votes. I would say even maybe obviously Parsons I think is in a league of his own, but I think Garrett is like really showing what he can do in a system like this where he's just pinning his ears back and just like fooling offensive linemen. He's looking awesome.
And but I do think the Browns defense is being a bit overrated for a few reasons. Not overrated. They're very good, but in terms of basically them being 3-point favorites against the Ravens. I don't know if that's...
I hear you there.
Because they played the Bengals in that rainy game when Joe Burrow looked terrible and hadn't practiced and was nursing that calf injury.
Totally.
They then played the Steelers, who I don't think are world beaters on offense. And then they played the Titans, who are one of the worst offensive teams in the NFL. So, like, the Browns have given up 21 first downs the whole season. That's insane. The next closest team is plus 20 on that. So that's really, really impressive. But that is the context of those statistics. And so with the Baltimore Ravens coming off a bad loss where they're probably pissed that they gave that game away in overtime, they are still, in my opinion, like the most consistent team in the AFC North. And so I think that that Lamar shows up and then hopefully this offense starts to click. Ronnie Stanley, we don't know if he's going to play, but they've been able to work around that. Odell Beckham, he's still nursing that ankle injury. We shall see.
And also, I'm also pretty. I think this Ravens defense on Browns offense matchup is relatively favorable.
That's the thing. Is now they may come down to earth a little bit now that Nick Chubb isn't there anymore. That team is a run-centric football team, or it should. That's where the strength of it is. And Deshaun Watson, he did play much better last week, but he's still shown that he can be inconsistent throwing the football. And the Ravens always are well coached in the secondary, so they may be able to make some game-changing plays in that way.
And that's where I think it would come across is that it's nothing against the Browns O-line because their line is so good across the board. I mean, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills, Ethan Pochich at center, like amazing offensive line. But it's more a matter of like, can Deshaun Watson get the ball out enough for them to to withhold the brush and get guys open,
right?
And as you said, we're relying on Jerome Ford and newly signed Kareem Hunt, whereas they had Nick Chubb prior. So we'll see. I think this is worth taking a risk on for sure.
Yeah. All right. You're up. Speaking of those Colts, you think that they're going to beat the Rams?
Yep. This is an interesting one for me. I'm
Indianapolis Colts +1 for the podcast audience.
Yeah, against the Rams because I saw, as much as I was expressing how I've been feeling good about the Rams offense, I was a little bit concerned about how they started to sputter against the Bengals. And especially when Joe Noteboom came out of the game, their starting left tackle, I believe, and they were kind of relying on backup linemen and having some difficulty support.
The Rams' offensive line might be the worst in football.
Yeah, and with Noteboom out, who kind of came on strong last year, got an extension, kind of a surprise story to be a kind of like plus left tackle for them, going to a backup, and it seemingly inexplicably for a chunk of that game when their backup was in, not giving Chip help when Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson and DJ Reader are coming down the pike. They finally started doing it, but it seemed a little bit of a late adjustment.
Yeah.
the Rams defense, I think, is still is feisty, but not very talented.
Yeah.
But outside of Aaron Donald, basically, and like Darian Kendrick, who I also like, but not much there. And I've been honestly pretty freaking impressed with how kind of creative this Colts offense has even looked with Gardner Minshew behind center and Zach Moss being kind of leading the rushing attack. Like they've looked surprisingly good, and I think like this is me sort of taking a bet of like me kind of like leading up to my apex of my Shane Steichen appreciation, where I'm kind of like, I think they're way feistier and way more competitive than people potentially would have thought for a freshman coach with a rookie quarterback coming in. I'm pretty bullish on the Colts, and I could definitely be wrong, but I was kind of really shocked about how they stuck with it with the Ravens last week in a kind of rocky game for both teams.
I agree. As gun to my head, as I'd say, I think that I would pick the Colts to win this game. The thing is just if Matthew Stafford kind of returns a little bit to form, he may have been banged up on Monday.
Right.
He did not look right towards the end of the game, and poor guy. I mean, he's always putting himself in harm's way because he's such a team player, but he struggles with injuries.
And this is mostly a bet on the Colts offense versus the Rams defense. Like, because as you're saying, the Colts defense definitely also is honestly similar to the Rams in that like there's definitely something to be desired on the talent front outside of like DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't hate that. I am so sorry, Bradley, but I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs -9.5.
I would not fault you for it.
I was surprised to see that the line was. I thought it would be a little bit larger. What else is there to say? I mean, if the defense hasn't looked as good as it should,
in two straight games, in both against the Patriots and the Cowboys. I mean,
against the Patriots, Zach Wilson scored a touchdown in garbage time.
And got a safety.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, man, it's just hard. It's hard for me to see anything less than.
No, they are playing like one of the worst teams in the league. So and
well, the offense is non-functional,
non-functional.
And also the Kansas City defense has been playing really, really well. Like they've
looked great. Honestly, they've looked really. I totally agree. I feel like I'm honestly loving everything that Spagnuolo is doing so far. I think that Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, Leo Chenal are the kind of like hair on fire linebackers they have are looking really great. I love their kind of secondary pass rush options now, like outside of Chris Jones, Mike Dana and George Karlaftis and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, their rookie. And their corners are also still looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Jerry Sneed, Justin Reed. Like, this is a talented defense. Maybe I would almost argue like, in terms of like cohesion and like the way they've been playing, it's from a personnel level, one of the more like talented defensive units they've had since Mahomes started playing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so, with all that being said, you could definitely see this front seven kind of feasting on the Jets' patchwork offensive line and a kind of running scared Zach Wilson. But one wrinkle in your plan, Emma, is if Trevor Siemian gets in the game. Watch out. If Trevor Siemian gets in the game, watch out.
Yeah.
The Jets will be covering this spread if Trevor Siemian gets in the game. Super Bowl aspirations are back if Trevor Siemian gets behind center.
Niall from Trinidad writes, in Emma and Bradley, who would make a great replacement for Jets quarterback Zach Wilson? Carson Wentz, Cam, etc. None. First of all, Carson Wentz... What do we do?
Carson Wentz is bad. I
is
would really not like him to be
bigger Zach Wilson, gunslinger, interception thrower.
Yep.
Also known to be a terrible teammate. So I don't know if that's the best.
Also almost similar, like kind of just like annoying guy.
Apparently a total asshole is what people say. And Cam is washed. Okay, so no.
I mean, there's I think a reason that he also hasn't really gotten contacted for a backup slot either.
I mean, this is the problem with the Jets. Like when you will go all in on somebody like this, and then the guy's out for the season. This is the bed you made. They can't move on from Zach Wilson at this point. It's just he'll start until maybe he can't anymore, and then they'll put Trevor Siemian in. But there's nothing Carson Wentz or there's nobody else they can bring in that's going to elevate this team. Because
I guess the question you have is like, would you also rather have a guy basically off the street or coming in as a free agent to then start throwing or working with players he like doesn't really know, learning the entire playbook. A playbook that was not only not meant for Zach Wilson, but would definitely not be meant for this guy, whoever it might be.
Yeah.
It's just it would just be a tough situation still. It wouldn't necessarily solve their problems.
Right.
I think, if anything, Simeon, who's been a Jets backup before, or Tim Boyle, who was also who sucked in college, and I guess Rodgers wanted his Packers backup as well. They could maybe, because they're in the system, do something, but I think at this point you cut your losses here. You play out the string. I think that's all you can do.
And they're not going to sign Kaepernick, guys. I mean, that ship has sailed.
I know they wouldn't do it.
I want to say to Colin, like, stop. I mean, he's almost saying this publicly because he knows it's not going to happen. But if Colin were to come back now, he would be very bad. Like, he hasn't played in the NFL in 7 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
You see what happens to rusty Deshaun Watson looked?
And that was 2.
Completely different circumstances, obviously. But that's the thing is like, when you don't get reps, you lose it a little bit. And
he'll be 36 in November. I mean, he's also significantly older than Watson too.
Right. And Collins, like, so much of his game was dependent on his ability to run. So it's just not a good idea, even though he could sling it. I mean,
no, I love watching. Love watching him play.
Remember that Niners game?
The
playoff game against the Packers
when he went for 181 rushing yards, the record, single game record. Yeah, it was amazing.
That was amazing. And I saw somebody. I forget who made this case, like that Daniel Jones playoff performance against the Vikings, where he ran a ton and threw a ton too. That was the performance they most likened it to, but a little different in a dome and a little different against that terrible Vikings defense than when Colin just put the team on his back in Green Bay.
Yeah, that was the crazy part to it, because I think that Packers defense was like okay, pretty good at least. I think that was still like Clay Matthews. And BJ Raji and guys like that.
I just don't want Colin Kaepernick to come back to the NFL and not be good, and then everybody be like, see, he sucked the whole time.
And then the nauseous news cycle starts up again of being like, oh, you gave him a chance to prove that your team is like racially sensitive and he sucks. Like,
right. That's exactly it. Like, it would be one thing if this was 5 years ago or something like that, but I worry about him coming back and then every idiot being
it's just too much potential chud speak for me to consider.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Survivor. I'm eliminated, but we're just still going to give picks.
One life down for Emma.
Yeah, exactly. San Francisco 49ers, and you're picking the Chiefs with the game you're going to. Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
easy. I think both explain themselves, unless the Cardinals are actually consistently way more frisky than we ever anticipated.
The Niners are division rivals. They're going to have some understanding of that roster. Right. And Shanahan's not going to put up with that bullshit like Mike McCarthy
He's like,
did.
no, I'm actually just going to I'm actually going to destroy you.
Yeah. Oh, and also they're on 10 days of rest.
The Niners are.
Yes.
Right. And then with everything we said with the Chiefs, I mean, the home field advantage is barely going to matter, and I just think they're going to stomp them.
Yeah, there might be a lot of Chiefs fans in attendance too.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Including, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but Taylor Swift is going to be at the game.
Yeah, I can't wait to see her. We'll chat a little bit about the tour and stuff, how everything's going.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Go Jets! Yeah.
Jets.
Jets. I wonder when I'll start being like, wow, I'm miserable and can't be here anymore.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll be able to get back on. It's really hard to get out of MetLife on the train.
And that's my, I think I'm also curious when that thought will start creeping into my head, like before halftime. Like, will I be like, oh god, we gotta go home?
Have you ever been to a night game at MetLife Stadium? Because this is gonna be my first ever.
No, I don't believe I've ever been to a night game. I've only been to day games, 1 or 4. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, this will be both of our first night games at MetLife. I'm really excited about it. I told my buddy Ryan, like, who's a big Giants fan, when I saw him a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, are you going to be at the game? Like, Like, and he's like, no, I don't go to night games. Like, good luck. It's a total nightmare to get the hell out of there. And for that, you're going to have a great time. And if they lose, you're going to be the most miserable person in the world.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I was there.
And I have work the next day. So.
Yeah, if I'm wondering if it'll be any different, but it was real chaotic trying to get out of there from WrestleMania in 2019. I got home at like 3 a.m. from, so
yeah,
hoping to not repeat that, but.
I mean,
it was pretty smooth there when we went after Bruce Springsteen, so maybe that'll be. I'm praying for Bruce, not for WrestleMania.
Well, it was
era MetLife.
That was when I first got COVID. Lady Gaga last summer coming out of MetLife. Anyway,
special memories from the hellacious AC unit that is MetLife.
Yeah, God, it's so ugly and it's so new. How is it possible? How is it possible?
It's new and it doesn't look new, nor does it feel new.
No.
Yeah.
It's and also the turf is horrific and keeps injuring players.
Yeah,
so.
It's just a bad place.
Yeah.
Thanks, Woody Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. And John Mara, you're supposed to be the pro player, dude.
Can we
get some grass in there?
Yeah.
Idiot. Tear it down. And honestly, it should be burned to the ground.
Yeah, I would participate.
Just kidding. Don't.
Hypothetically.
Allegedly. Just we're joking, obviously. Anyway, no arson on this program. No. Just good vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
I am.
That's our slogan. ESPN. No arson on this program. Just good vibes.
Yep. It's words to live by. Appreciate you all. We will see you. Stay tuned for an announcement. Since I am going to that game, we might have to do a short show on Monday, or we'll just do a long show on Tuesday where we can talk about it. I will announce it. Just look out for it. All right. Appreciate you all. We will see you next week.
Bye, guys.